Funding for Overheard with Evan Smith is provided in part by Hilco Partners, Texas Government Affairs Consultancy, and its global healthcare consulting business unit, Hilco Health, and by the Matson McHale Foundation in support of public television, and also by MFI Foundation, improving the quality of life within our community, and also by the Alice Kleberg Reynolds Foundation, and viewers like you. Thank you.
I'm Evan Smith. He's a staff writer for The New Yorker magazine, whose last book, The Looming Tower, Al-Qaeda and the Road to 9/11, won a Pulitzer Prize, spawned both a stage performance and a documentary, and set the highest possible bar for reporting on the complicated new world in which we live. And if you thought the war on terror was controversial, wait until you hear what he's been working on lately. He's Lawrence Wright. This is Overheard.
Is that a vote you'd like to have back now? Because you're a judge or a justice in your case doesn't mean that you're free of personal opinions about things.
You have a dimmer view of him than you have of presidents past.
So when they take your name in vain, you just laugh it off. For the larger issue, though, in your mind, is that it's not about whether there ought to be a death penalty, but whether the death penalty as administered is fair.
Larry, good to see you.
Thanks, Evan. It's good to see you.
Always fun to sit and talk about serious things with you.
They don't always have to be serious.
No, but I have a feeling we'll talk about a few serious things now. So I was coming over here thinking, it's 2011. It's 10 years since 9/11. I don't know that was fully in my mind yet, but this September will in fact be 10 years.
Yeah, I know.
It's kind of stunning, isn't it, to think that much time has passed.
And to see where we are now.
Both what's changed and what hasn't.
Right.
So much has changed, but then I heard this week that Muqtada al-Sadr is back in Iraq after 4 years in Iran, railing against the American government as if nothing changed. President Biden, as we sit, Vice President Biden, as you and I sit here today, is in Pakistan, railing against the Pakistanis playing footsie with the bad elements in Afghanistan. We had unprecedented numbers of casualties in Afghanistan in the last year. In fact, 10 years later, not an enormous amount is different, is it?
Well, and most obviously, we still haven't gotten bin Laden.
And the big one is that we still don't know where bin Laden is and we don't have him. What about that?
Well, it's, a compound of many different mistakes that we've made over that time. And also historical forces that were going to be put into play in any case. But, just to speak of the mistakes, it was a horrible mistake to leave the back door open when we went into Afghanistan in December of 2001. There was a traffic of Al-Qaeda hierarchy just going out in a steady stream, and we were trusting the Pakistanis to be the people that were going to close that door, and that didn't happen. Our commanders on the ground asked for American troops to reinforce and block that passage, and the decision was made at a command level not to do that. Well, and then follow on that, to decide to go under mistaken pretenses into Iraq and divert our resources at that critical moment. All of those things set us up for this catastrophic moment that we are in now, where we are, instead of having put an end to this, we're in the midst of a burgeoning terrorist contagion all over the world.
In theory, though, we are putting an end to it. We've announced plans to be out of Iraq in X period of time, where the majority of our forces out of Iraq in X period of time. The president talked about increasing troops in Afghanistan with the idea that that was also looking ahead to the day when we would be out. So in theory, this is coming to an end. I'm just not sure what we got for the 10 years. Do you feel like, is it even fair to ask, is it worth it? Was it worth it to you?
Which part of it?
Well, let's take them one at a time. Was the Iraq part worth it, as you view it?
No, that was a disaster.
Right.
I mean,
there's no way you can defend it or justify it?
It's hard to know exactly what price Iraqis would have put on the acquisition of the kind of democracy they have right now. But had it been 500,000 people or 2 million people, the range of estimates of casualties is so great. If they're willing to spend all that to get what they have now, then they might say it was worth it. But it'd be hard to say that. From an American perspective, we haven't gained an ally in Iraq. We have liberated Iran from its traditional enemy, and creating a far greater potential for menace in that region than Iraq was ever going to be.
And you mean specifically in Iran? In Iran,
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, if you start with Iraq, that was a historic catastrophe from our perspective, and it's got ramifications that are going to last for a long, long time. In Afghanistan, we failed in our mission to get bin Laden, and then we took on the idea of recreating what is a very primitive tribal state into some kind of modern democracy. And that's not going to happen. There are only two possible outcomes in Afghanistan now. One is that we stay and keep our presence there as much as possible, with the outcome that we will be supporting a false-faced democracy that is run really by drug lords and warlords. And that's the good outcome.
Yeah, that's the one we're hoping happens.
Yeah, the other outcome is that we withdraw and create a power vacuum, and the Taliban overrun the government, and Al-Qaeda finds a new sanctuary and a much more powerful ally.